In this story, you will learn how uncovering a hidden affair turned one man's life upside down and led to unexpected personal growth. My name is Jack Williams. I'm 38 years old, an industrial engineer living in Dallas, Texas. Life's been pretty routine for me. Wake up, go to work, come home, repeat. But lately, something's been off at home. Lisa, my wife of 10 years, has been acting strange. She's 33 and has always been the heart of our home, but recently, she seems distant. I noticed her spending more time out of the house and glued to her phone when she is home. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but the feeling grew stronger each day. One evening, as we were getting ready for bed, I decided to bring it up. We were in our bedroom, the only place I felt we could talk without interruptions. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. "Lisa," I started, "you've been acting different lately. Is there something going on that I should know about?" She looked up from her phone, a hint of surprise in her eyes. "What do you mean, Jack? Nothing's going on. Just the usual stuff. You're imagining things." Her dismissive tone hit me hard. I wanted to believe her, but my gut told me otherwise. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake off the feeling that something wasn't right. The next day at work, I couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying our conversation. Lisa had never been one to hide things from me, so why now? I needed to find out what was really happening. I called my old college buddy, Mike, who works in the electronics industry. We hadn't spoken in a while, but I knew he'd help me out. "Hey, Mike, it's Jack," I said when he picked up. "I need a favor. Can we meet up sometime soon?" "Jack, man. Long time no talk. Sure, let's catch up. What's going on?" Mike replied, sounding genuinely happy to hear from me. We agreed to meet that evening. Mike showed up at my place with a bag full of gadgets. We set up tiny cameras in the living room and a GPS tracker in Lisa's car. As we worked, Mike gave me a concerned look. "Jack, are you sure about this? It feels invasive," he said, hesitating with the last camera. "I know, Mike, but I need to know what's going on. Can't just sit here and do nothing," I replied, my voice firm but tinged with doubt. That night, I felt a mix of guilt and determination. I didn't want to spy on Lisa, but I needed answers. Over the next week, I watched hours of footage, hoping to find nothing. But one day, my worst fears were confirmed. On the screen, I saw Lisa meeting up with Bill Johnson, my best friend. They were laughing, touching, looking way too close. My heart sank as I watched them together. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and betrayal. When Lisa got home that night, I tried to act normal, but it was hard. Every time she looked at me, I wondered how long this had been going on. I knew I had to confront her, but I needed more evidence first. So I continued to watch, each day more painful than the last. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided I needed to talk to Bill first, away from Lisa. We met at a bar, the same place we used to hang out when life was simpler. "Bill, I know about you and Lisa," I said bluntly as soon as we sat down. Bill's face turned pale, and he stammered, "Jack, I don't know what to say." "How long?" demanded, my voice shaking with anger. 6 months, he admitted, looking down at his drink. "I'm sorry, Jack. Sorry," nearly shouted. "You're my best friend. How could you do this to me?" He didn't have an answer, just sat there, looking ashamed but not nearly remorseful enough. I felt a surge of rage and sorrow, but held back from making a scene. needed to process this. Next, I knew I had to confront Lisa, but not tonight. I needed time to think, to plan what to say. As I drove home, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. I had the truth, but now I had to decide what to do with it. The morning after my confrontation with Bill, woke up feeling like a weight had settled on my chest. My mind was a jumbled mess of anger, sadness, and disbelief. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I had to face Lisa. After breakfast, Lisa announced she was heading out to run some errands. I decided to use this time to review the recordings one last time, hoping against hope that I had misunderstood, that there was some innocent explanation. As I watched the footage, my heart sank further. The evidence was undeniable. Lisa and Bill had been meeting up regularly, their interactions far too intimate to be anything but an affair. Seeing it all laid out so plainly was like a punch to the gut. Felt a mix of rage and helplessness. How could they betray me like this? When Lisa returned, I was ready. We sat in the living room, the air thick with tension. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. She looked at me, confusion and worry in her eyes. "What's wrong, Jack?" "I know about you and Bill," I said, cutting straight to the point. "I've seen the recordings." Her face turned white, and she sank into the couch, tears welling up in her eyes. "Jack, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." "Why, Lisa? Why did you do it?" I asked, my voice cracking. She took a deep breath, struggling to find the words. "I felt so alone, Jack. You've been so busy with work, and I needed someone to talk to, someone who made me feel important." I sat there, numb, as she continued to explain. "It started out as just talking, but then it became more. I know it's no excuse, but I felt neglected, and Bill was there." Her words hit me hard. I had been working long hours, trying to provide for us, but maybe I had neglected her needs. It didn't excuse what she did, but it gave me some perspective. "I wish you had talked to me about how you were feeling," I said quietly. "We could have worked through it together." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know, Jack. I'm so sorry." We sat in silence for a while, both of us lost in our thoughts. The reality of the situation was sinking in, and I knew our marriage was over. I couldn't stay with someone who had betrayed my trust so deeply. That evening, called my lawyer to start the divorce proceedings. It was a painful step, but I knew it was the right one. I needed to move on from this chapter of my life. Over the next few days, Lisa packed her things and moved out. The house felt emptier than ever, each room a reminder of what we once had. I focused on work, trying to keep my mind occupied, but the betrayal lingered, a constant ache in my chest. One evening, I decided to visit a park where Lisa and I used to go. I needed to clear my head, to find some semblance of peace. As I walked through the familiar paths, I reflected on everything that had happened. It was a hard truth to face, but I knew I had to let go and start rebuilding my life. Realized that I needed to take better care of myself, to not let work consume me so completely. Maybe this was a wake-up call. Chance to find balance and happiness on my own terms. It wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to move forward. As I left the park, I felt a small sense of relief. It was a long road ahead, but I was ready to take the first step. The days following Lisa's departure were a blur. The house felt empty, and the silence was deafening. Each room held memories of our life together, now tainted by betrayal. Threw myself into work, but even that couldn't keep my mind off the situation. The betrayal was like a wound that refused to heal. One particularly rough night, I found myself unable to sleep. I tossed and turned, haunted by the images of Lisa and Bill together. Around 3 a.m., I gave up and went to the kitchen to make some coffee. As I waited for the coffee to brew, I stared out the window into the dark, empty street, feeling just as empty inside. I decided to call Mike. He'd been my go-to guy through this whole ordeal, and I needed someone to talk to. "Hey, Mike, you awake?" asked when he picked up. "Yeah, man. What's up?" Mike's voice was groggy but concerned. "I can't stop thinking about everything. It's driving me crazy," I admitted. "You want to come over and talk?" he offered. "Yeah, that sounds good. I'll be there in a bit," I replied, feeling a bit of relief. When I arrived at Mike's place, he greeted me with a warm smile and a cup of coffee. We sat on his porch, the cool night air helping to clear my head. "Jack, I know this is tough, but you need to take care of yourself," Mike said, looking me in the eyes. "You can't let this consume you." "I know, Mike. It's just, everything's falling apart. I feel so lost," I confessed, my voice shaking. "Look, it's going to hurt for a while, but you're strong. You'll get through this." Mike reassured me. "You need to find something to focus on, something that makes you happy." Mike's words stuck with me as I drove home. I needed to find a way to move forward. The next day, I decided to take up jogging. It was something I used to enjoy, but had let slip away over the years. I laced up my old running shoes and hit the trail near my house. At first, it was tough. My body protested, unused to the exercise. But as I ran, I felt a sense of release. The rhythmic pounding of my feet on the pavement, the rush of the wind in my face. It helped clear my mind. For a little while, I could forget about everything and just focus on the moment. Gradually, jogging became my therapy. Each run was a chance to process my thoughts and emotions. I started to feel a bit more like myself again. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was a step in the right direction. One evening, after a long run, I sat down on a bench overlooking a small lake. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the water. Took a deep breath, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in weeks. It was then that I realized I had to stop punishing myself for what happened. Yes, Lisa and Bill had betrayed me, but I couldn't let their actions define my life. I had to take control and find my own path forward. I decided to see a therapist. It wasn't an easy decision, but I knew I needed help to navigate my emotions. My first session was nerve-wracking, but my therapist, Dr. Harris, was patient and understanding. "Jack, it's okay to feel hurt and betrayed. What you're going through is incredibly difficult," Dr. Harris said. "But it's important to acknowledge those feelings and work through them." We talked about my marriage, my work, and my struggles. Dr. Harris helped me see that while I couldn't change what happened, I could control how I responded to it. I left that session feeling a glimmer of hope. Over the next few weeks, I continued my therapy sessions and kept up with my jogging. Slowly, I started to rebuild my life. Reconnected with old friends, picked up new hobbies, and even took a weekend trip to clear my mind. It wasn't easy, and there were still tough days, but each small step forward was a victory. I was learning to let go of the past and focus on the present. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was heading in the right direction. The routine of jogging and therapy was helping, but the pain of betrayal still lingered. One thing I hadn't done was confront Bill properly. The brief, heated exchange at the bar hadn't been enough to address the full extent of my anger and hurt. I knew I needed closure. One evening, after a particularly grueling therapy session, I decided to reach out to Bill. I called him, feeling my heart pound as the phone rang. "Hey, Jack," Bill answered, sounding wary. "Bill, we need to talk. Can we meet up?" I asked, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "Sure. How about the park near your place? In an hour," he suggested. "Okay, see you then," I replied, hanging up and feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. When I arrived at the park, Bill was already there, sitting on a bench. The same bench where I had found some peace weeks before. As I approached, he stood up, looking nervous. "Hey, Jack," he said, giving a small, awkward wave. "Bill," I replied curtly, sitting down on the bench. "We need to clear the air." "Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Jack." "Really am," Bill began, his voice shaky. "Why, Bill? How could you do this to me?" I asked, looking him in the eyes. "I don't have a good answer," he admitted. "Lisa and we just connected. But that's no excuse. I betrayed your trust, and I hate myself for it." Took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You were my best friend, Bill. I trusted you more than anyone, and you threw that away." "I know, and I can't undo it. All I can do is apologize and hope you can eventually forgive me," he said, his voice breaking. We sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of the conversation settling in. Finally, I spoke again. "I'm not ready to forgive you, Bill. Maybe one day, but not now," I said, feeling a sense of finality. "I understand," Bill replied quietly. "Just want you to know I'm truly sorry." I stood up, feeling a bit lighter but still burdened. "Take care, Bill." As I walked away, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Confronting Bill hadn't fixed everything, but it was a step toward healing. Over the next few weeks, I continued to focus on my recovery. Dr. Harris suggested I find a new hobby to help fill the void left by the end of my marriage and friendship. I decided to take up photography, something I'd always been interested in but never had the time for. One Saturday morning, I grabbed my new camera and headed to a local nature reserve. As I walked through the trails, capturing the beauty around me, I felt a sense of calm. The world looked different through the lens, and it was a welcome distraction. During one of my outings, I met a fellow photographer named Sarah. She was friendly and passionate about photography, and we quickly struck up a conversation. "Hi, I'm Sarah," she said, offering her hand. "Jack," I replied, shaking her hand. "Nice to meet you." We spent the afternoon chatting and taking pictures. It felt good to connect with someone new, someone who didn't know about my past and the pain I'd been through. As the weeks went by, Sarah and I became friends. We met up regularly for photography sessions, and she introduced me to a local photography club. It was a new world for me, and I found joy in capturing moments and seeing the world in a different light. One evening, after a club meeting, Sarah and I went for coffee. As we talked, she mentioned something that resonated deeply with me. "You know, Jack, photography is all about perspective. It's about finding beauty in unexpected places," she said, smiling. "Yeah, guess it is," I replied, thinking about how much my perspective had changed over the past few months. That night, as I reflected on everything, I realized I was starting to find my own path. The pain of the past was still there, but it was no longer the defining feature of my life. I was moving forward, step by step, and finding new reasons to smile. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. The following months brought a mixture of challenges and new beginnings. My runs had become longer, and my photography sessions with Sarah had become a regular highlight of my week. I was learning to embrace my new life, but the scars of betrayal still lingered. One Friday evening, after a particularly satisfying photo session at a local park, Sarah and I decided to grab dinner. We chose a small, cozy diner we both liked. As we sat down, I could sense she had something on her mind. "Jack, there's something I want to talk to you about," Sarah said, looking a bit hesitant. "Sure, what's up?" I asked, trying to sound casual, though her tone made me curious. "I've noticed you still carry a lot of pain from what happened with Lisa and Bill. Have you ever thought about confronting Lisa?" she asked gently. I sighed, thinking about the possibility. "Honestly, I haven't. I figured it was better to just move on and leave it all behind." "I get that," Sarah replied, "but sometimes facing things head-on can help you truly move past them." Her words stayed with me. I knew she was right, but the thought of confronting Lisa was daunting. I decided to discuss it with Dr. Harris during our next session. "Dr. Harris, do you think it's a good idea to talk to Lisa?" asked during our meeting. "It could be, Jack," Dr. Harris replied thoughtfully. "It might give you the closure you need, but it's important to prepare yourself for whatever outcome." A few days later, I mustered up the courage to call Lisa. The phone rang a few times before she picked up. "Hello," she answered, her voice sounding tentative. "Hey, Lisa, it's Jack. Can we meet up and talk?" asked, my heart pounding. There was a pause before she replied. "Hey, Jack, let's meet at the coffee shop on Main Street tomorrow at 10. The next morning, I arrived early and found a quiet corner table. When Lisa walked in, she looked different, older, more worn. She spotted me and walked over, sitting down across from me. "Hi, Jack," she said softly. "Hi, Lisa," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I just needed to talk to you, to understand why." Lisa sighed, looking down at her hands. "I don't have a simple answer, Jack. I was unhappy and lonely. But that doesn't justify what I did. I'm so sorry." "Appreciate that," I said, "but I need to know, was there something I did? Something I could have done differently?" Lisa looked up, her eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't about you, Jack. It was about me and my own issues. I should have talked to you instead of running to Bill. I regret it every day." Hearing her admit her mistakes brought a strange sense of relief. "I wish things had been different, Lisa. But we can't change the past." "No, we can't," she agreed. "I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me someday." "Maybe someday," I replied honestly. "For now, I just need to move on." We parted ways amicably, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a step toward healing. As time went on, I continued to grow. My runs became longer, my photography improved, and my friendship with Sarah deepened. One evening, after a particularly beautiful sunset shoot, Sarah and I sat on a bench, reviewing our photos. "You've really improved, Jack," she said, smiling. "Thanks, Sarah. Couldn't have done it without your help," I replied. She looked at me thoughtfully. "You know, Jack, life is a lot like photography. It's about finding the right focus, the right perspective." I nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind her words. "Yeah, it is, and I'm finally starting to find mine." As I sat there, watching the last rays of the sun disappear, I felt a sense of peace. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer defined me. I was moving forward, finding new joys and new challenges. In the end, life is about resilience. It's about picking up the pieces and building something new, something stronger. And that's exactly what I was doing. If you found the story interesting, please subscribe to the channel, press the bell, and don't forget to give us a like. Thanks for watching. See you all soon.